When a dying woman says her final words, Trump calls her, and what she does next will make you cry. Come closer, all of you. I want to see you one last time. Martha opened her eyes slightly. A cloud of sadness filled the room, a sorrow that only deep love could convey. Each of them struggled to face this heartbreaking moment. As she looked at their sorrowful faces, she could feel her time slipping away. Clara held her mother's hands tightly, her eyes red from crying all night. With a whisper, her trembling voice said, "Mama, I'm here." One by one, Martha's grandchildren, son-in-law and daughter-in-law, gathered around her bed. She looked at each face, each beloved expression she had memorized and cherished over the years. Still holding her daughter Clara's hand tightly, she turned to her family and spoke slowly, her words carrying both weight and love. "I don't want you to cry for me now," she began softly. "Each and every one of you has given me more joy than any mother or grandmother could ever wish for. I am grateful. But I want you to smile when you think of me, okay?" The small bodies of the black woman's grandchildren huddled together, trying to grasp the gravity of the situation. 7-year-old Amelia clutched a worn-out teddy bear close to her chest, its fur ragged from years of love. "Mom, is Grandma going to die?" she asked. All eyes turned to her. "No, baby, don't say that. Grandma will be okay very soon," Clara said to her daughter, though doubt weighed in her heart. She looked up at her mother, the harsh reality of loss clashing with her desperate hope for her mother's recovery. Martha smiled faintly. "Well, you know she's right. My time is up. You need to let me go." She coughed weakly. "I've already lived my life. Now it's time for you to live yours as well." She turned to her son. "You too, David." David, Clara's younger brother, tried to stay strong, but his trembling lips betrayed his fear. They looked at each other, finding comfort in their shared grief. Martha breathed slowly and deliberately. Each exhale was a whisper of comfort. Each inhale, a gentle reminder of the life still within her. Every now and then, she would open her eyes and look calmly at the faces of her loved ones. A faint smile on her lips, she murmured, barely above a whisper, "I think it's time. I love you all so much. I hope you all know that." Her voice was weak. Love, grief, and nostalgia filled the room. Family members reminisced about special moments that had shaped their lives together, sharing stories, laughter, and tears. They remembered Martha's unwavering spirit, her fiery love, and the countless lessons she had imparted. Every memory they shared was a way to cling to the light she had brought into their lives, woven forever into their family's history. Suddenly, Clara's phone buzzed loudly, breaking the somber silence and startling everyone. She looked down, momentarily confused. A private number. The screen continued to vibrate insistently. David, who had been crying moments earlier, glanced at the phone. His voice, full of emotion, whispered, "Who would call from a private number right now?" Clara hesitated. Something about the constant buzzing unsettled her. A strange feeling she couldn't shake, but she wasn't sure what to do. The phone kept buzzing, adding an uneasy tension to the room. "I don't know," she murmured, glancing at her family before looking at her mother. Though Martha's eyes were half closed and her breathing was labored, she had always been perceptive, almost intuitive. Perhaps she would know. The phone buzzed again. The unexpected sound seemed to stir something in Martha, whose eyes flickered open. Slowly, she turned her head toward Clara. After a long, heavy silence, Martha struggled to say 3 words. "Pick it up." Uncertain if she had heard correctly, Clara hesitated. But when she saw her mother's insistence, she picked up the phone. Her throat felt tight. She took a deep breath, glancing at her family. who were now all staring at her with puzzled expressions. She put the phone to her ear and almost hesitantly tapped the screen. "Hello?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then, a voice Clara had heard before broke through. "This is Donald Trump." Clara almost dropped the phone, her jaw hanging open in disbelief. "What?" she whispered so quietly that no one could hear her. Her heart pounded. Disoriented, she tightened her grip on the phone, her palm shaking. Then the voice on the other end became more urgent and clear. "It's Donald Trump. I've been trying to get in touch with Martha Johnson. Is she there?" Clara felt as if she had been thrown into a surreal dream. She stood frozen as the world around her suddenly felt unreal. She felt everyone's eyes on her, waiting for an explanation for the look of shock on her face. Her breath quickened, but no words came out. "Clara." "What is it?" David sensed the shift in the room and asked in a worried tone. Slowly lowering the phone, Clara's palm trembled as she tried to process what she had just heard. The weight of the moment pressed down on her. Her chest rose and fell as she looked at her family. Her lips moved, but as she spoke, the words felt unnatural and out of reach. "I think it's Donald Trump," she said in a raspy, almost whispery voice. Everyone stared at Clara, as if she had spoken in a foreign language. "You think Donald Trump? No way." David's expression wrinkled in perplexity. Clara nodded, unsure of what to do. Her heart pounded as she stumbled over her words. He's on the line. He says he wants to speak with Mama." David shook his head, curiosity mixed with confusion, wondering why Trump would call his mother out of all the people in the world. He paced back and forth, clenching his hands and muttering to himself. Why would he call it this time Martha's? Response was obvious, though her lips barely moved. A deliberate, gradual nod. Clara knew what she had to do, and her heart sank. After wiping a tear from her face, she looked at the other members of the family. Mom wants to answer the phone. Before David could protest, Martha's raspy voice broke the silence. "Put him on," she muttered, her tone filled with determination. Everyone fell silent, her hands shaking. Clara put the phone on speaker and placed it on the table next to her mother's bed. With everyone's attention on Martha, the room fell into a deep silence. Anticipation thick in the air. "This is Donald Trump, Mrs. Johnson. I wanted to get in touch with you." Martha's eyes opened slightly in shock when she heard his voice. A fire burned in her eyes, a determination that had not diminished with age or illness. Even though she was too frail to speak with the same vigor or sit up, the room held its breath, waiting for the next move. With astonishment still hanging in the air like a fog, the family leaned in closer. However, what she did next made everyone cry. Before illness took over, Martha had lived a life full of love, purpose, and unwavering dedication. She had taught at the neighborhood elementary school for more than 40 years, and her classroom was a haven of warmth and wonder. Her soothing voice and caring nature had shaped the young minds of generations of children in her care. In addition to teaching reading and math, Martha had a gift for imparting life lessons, empathy, respect, and the importance of big dreams. She was the kind of teacher who would stay after school to help a struggling child, who knew each kid's name and who continued to receive letters from her students long after they had grown up. When she received gifts from her students, she would smile, a sense of pride rising in her heart as she remembered all the little faces that had looked up at her with faith and hope. Over time, however, Martha's health began to deteriorate. Small, unnoticeable symptoms appeared, a slight ache here, a brief period of exhaustion there. too preoccupied to think about herself. She waved them away with a gesture of her hand, but as months stretched into a year, her once limitless vitality began to fade. Those who knew her saw that the once invincible woman now moved more slowly and laughed less frequently. As her health declined, Martha expressed one final wish to her family. She had always secretly cherished the desire to meet Donald Trump. Even though she had never mentioned it before, she admired his ability to lead and inspire others. To make her dream come true, her family wrote letters and reached out to friends and acquaintances. They understood the value of time as her gradual decline marked each day. But time passed with no answer, no matter how hard they tried. Always trying to see the bright side, they would look at Clara and say, "Maybe he's busy," when it became clear that her wish might not be fulfilled. Martha's eyes still shone with peace. But here they were, listening to Trump reaching out to her. "Hello," they heard his voice again. Martha finally spoke. Each syllable of her voice was a feeble attempt at a whisper. There was a pause. And then, with a surprise and delight that no one had seen in months, Martha's eyes opened wide as she listened. The room seemed to hold its breath. The sickly, fragile black woman who lay in that bed was temporarily transformed. Everyone's attention was captured by the glimmer of life in her eyes. It was obvious. She was talking to him, the former president. Even the faint sound of her laughter helped diffuse the tension in the room. Seeing his mother's face light up with happiness made David's eyes sting. As Martha spoke, her voice grew stronger and her words took on a warmth that had been missing for some time. Her eyes sparkled with emotion as she answered, "What an honor." As she listened to Trump speak, a tear trickled down her cheek, and she fell silent. Though the president could not see her, she nodded. "Thanks. You, sir. I shall take this blessing with me," Martha whispered. "Oh my goodness," she giggled.